Since the early 20th century, pilots have been coping with the meteorological phenomena of icing. As a result of the extensive industry experience with flight in icing conditions and the vast improvements in aircraft systems technology, modern aircraft are much better able to safely handle flight in icing conditions. Nonetheless, icing still presents a significant challenge to aviation safety and requires continuous vigilance on the part of everyone in the operational loop. To disseminate the latest understanding of the icing environment, capitalize on cumulative piloting experience and technological improvements appropriate to the operation of the Embraer regional jet, and to review specific procedures, Embraer has prepared this video for flight crews and all involved in flight operations. In this video, we will take a look at icing from several points of view. We will review some basic icing meteorology, how ice forms on an aircraft, the effects of ice on aircraft handling and performance, and how to operate in icing conditions. We will also discuss anti-ice and de-ice fluid application, and we will emphasize the importance of the clean airplane concept. Our goal is to ensure that you understand the basics of the icing environment, ground de-icing and de-icing procedures, the principles of flight in icing conditions, and the effect of icing conditions on aircraft performance and handling to allow you to safely operate the Embraer regional jet. A review of the icing phenomena. Icing conditions are defined by the airplane flight manual based on static air temperature for ground operations and total air temperature for in-flight operations. Icing conditions may exist if SAT and TAT is 10 degrees Celsius or below, along with prevailing conditions on ground or in flight. Contamination on the ground can be caused by falling wet or dry snow, slush, frost, freezing rain, or drizzle, and the cold soak effect. Frost is a crystalline, light layer of ice which can form on almost the entire aircraft when the temperature of the exposed surface is below freezing, while the free air temperature may be above freezing. Significant deposits of ice can form on the wing upper or lower surface after a cold soak period in flight during a ground turnaround, and can occur when the outside air temperature is above or below freezing. It may also be difficult to detect ice that can form below a layer of snow or slush. Ice which builds up on fan blades and inlet lips can damage the engine when it is started. Ice on the fuselage can break loose and be ingested by rear-mounted engines. Any ice contamination on the aircraft prior to takeoff may have a detrimental effect on aircraft performance and handling. Airframe icing occurs when supercooled liquid water in the air adheres to or accretes on the surface of an aircraft. In flight, ice accumulation on an aircraft depends on many factors. The amount and shape of accumulated ice is a function of the concentration of supercooled liquid water in the cloud, droplet size, distance flown in icing clouds, collection efficiency, airspeed, and temperature. In flight, ice can also be produced by frozen particles impacting and sticking, or frozen particles melting and refreezing. Basic principles of ice accretion can be described this way. Small droplets normally accrete on the airfoil near the stagnation point. Often the tiny cloud droplets escape over the airfoil section without accreting on the aircraft. Larger droplets, with their increased inertia and impact over a larger percentage of the chord of the wing, often accrete well beyond the stagnation point. Therefore, larger supercooled droplets can produce more serious icing encounter. Icing from a cumuliform cloud frequently has a high liquid water content and large droplets. This flight in a cumuliform cloud leads to an increased potential for moderate and severe icing throughout most of the depth of the cloud. This is especially true during the developing stages of cumuliform clouds. The greater the distance flown in an icing cloud, the greater the amount of ice collected. This is typical when flying in a stratiform cloud with its layered development. Icing accumulation in a stratiform cloud is most often light to moderate. It is extremely important to note for stratiform clouds that the most severe icing intensity normally occurs near the tops of the cloud layers. The accretion rate also depends on the location and geometry of the surface of the airframe. A relatively large airfoil has low ice accretion efficiency. A narrow radius leading edge has a greater collection efficiency. As a result, the tailplane with a sharper leading edge section will usually accrete ice before it is visible on the wing and at a higher rate, which usually results in a greater ice thickness on the tail than on the wings. The supercool liquid water content also affects the rate of ice accretion. The high water content of the cumuliform clouds with large vertical development can cause ice to accumulate much more rapidly than in a stratiform cloud formation. Therefore, icing in cumuliform clouds can be light, moderate, or severe. Local temperatures, droplet size, and supercool liquid water content are the factors which most influence the type of ice accumulated on the aircraft. Low temperatures, total air temperature between -10 and -20 degrees Celsius, low liquid water content, and small droplets tend to result in rime ice, which has a rather milky, white, and opaque appearance. Warmer temperatures, total air temperatures between well above freezing and down to -10 degrees Celsius, high liquid water content, and larger droplets tend to result in glaze ice, which often has a clear, shiny appearance. Rime ice is more often found in relatively cold stratiform clouds, while glaze ice is most often found in cumuliform clouds. However, as previously mentioned, it is possible to encounter moderate to severe icing near the tops of stratiform clouds. Unfortunately, rime and glaze ice may form under identical ambient conditions, depending on the size of the airfoil and the speed of the aircraft. Flying in stratocumuliform cloud results in a mixture of rime and glaze ice, which is appropriately called mixed ice. Mixed ice can also occur in many other meteorological situations where the ambient conditions vary over short distances. Cloud droplet sizes are normally expressed in microns, which is a millionth of a meter. Cloud droplets are typically between 2 and 50 microns in diameter. However, freezing drizzle and freezing rain droplets as large as 1,000 microns, 1 millimeter, can occur. Freezing rain and freezing drizzle are large supercooled water droplets commonly referred to as SLD, which impact with aircraft surface to cause rapid and extensive ice accretion. Icing associated with freezing drizzle and rain is severe icing because aircraft are not designed or certified to handle icing from supercooled droplets that large. Freezing rain is normally associated with temperature inversion. The rain falls from the warm air above into sub-freezing air below. Freezing drizzle forms when liquid drizzle drops fall into sub-freezing air. It can also form and exist totally within a cloud that is entirely at below freezing temperatures. Freezing rain and freezing drizzle differ primarily by droplet size. While the size definition is not entirely uniform, it is important to know that supercooled droplets larger than about 50 microns represent SLD icing conditions. No aircraft is currently tested or certified for SLD icing under FAR Part 25, Appendix C. And consequently, these conditions represent severe icing. Evidence has shown that severe icing can be found from 15,000 feet down to ground level. with total air temperature and down to minus 20 degrees Celsius, not only during temperature inversion, as generally considered by pilots and forecasters, but also when a moderate wind shear exists near the top of the cloud, as well as in weak cumulus clouds embedded within a stratiform cloud layer. Any encounter with supercool large droplets in the form of freezing rain or freezing drizzle constitutes severe icing and requires immediate action by the flight crew to exit these icing conditions. Continued flight in freezing rain and drizzle or any supercool droplets larger than 50 microns is potentially very hazardous and must be avoided or exited as soon as possible. Unusually extensive ice accreted on the airframe in areas not normally observed to collect ice, or accumulation of ice on the upper surface of the wing aft of the protected area, should be assumed to come from supercooled large droplets. While such conditions are rare, they are extremely hazardous and must be exited immediately. Handling effects.